The morning sun was already fierce when James began his walk. At 71, he didn't rush anymore. His pace had settled into something steady, almost meditative. The narrow path cut through fields of tall, whispering grass, golden and brittle under the dry heat. This was his daily ritual, one that had outlasted jobs, friends, and even his wife. The walk kept him grounded, made him feel like the world still had a place for him. Cicadas screamed from unseen branches. Dust clung to his boots. A hawk circled lazily above, tracing slow spirals in the washed-out sky. Every sound seemed magnified in the stillness, his breath, the crunch of gravel beneath his soles, the faint hiss of wind weaving through the reeds. He paused near the bend, wiping sweat from his brow. The landscape stretched endlessly, deceptive in its calm beauty. He'd walked this trail 1,000 times, enough to feel safe. That false comfort was what betrayed him. A flicker in the grass caught his eye. Then, movement. One serpent slid silently across his boot, its scales glinting like oiled bronze. He froze. Another shape rose from the weeds, coiling near his ankle. Then a third. Their bodies moved with a terrible unity, twisting around his legs, climbing, tightening. "Easy now," he whispered, voice shaking. But they didn't stop. The first looped around his chest. Pressure built, sharp, suffocating. His cane dropped from his hand. He staggered backward, gasping as the world narrowed into heat, dust, and pain. His ribs creaked like old wood. The air left him in ragged bursts. His vision blurred, colors drained to gray. He tried to shout, but the sound died in his throat. The snakes tightened, cold and alive, their muscles pulsing against his skin. The last thing he saw was the horizon, vast, trembling, and bright. The sun blazed over the grasslands as he fell, its light swallowing the shadows that gathered around him. Then nothing, just the thud of his body against the earth and the soft rustle of grass returning to silence. James's hat rolled into the dirt, the wind tugging it gently, as if the world itself hadn't noticed he was gone. The world was fading. James felt the weight of his own body sinking into the earth, the tall grass closing over him like water. His breath was a thin thread, slipping between cracked lips. He thought of Mary, her laughter in the kitchen, the smell of bread, the way she'd touched his cheek before she left this world. Maybe this was how it ended. Quietly. Without fanfare. Then the ground trembled. A sound, deep, raw, alive, cut through the stillness. Through the haze of his fading sight, James saw movement in the light, a shape breaking through the golden field. The mane caught the sun first, a fiery halo, and then the body followed, massive and sure. A lion. It roared, a sound that split the air, primal and ancient. The snakes recoiled, hissing, their coils tightening instinctively before unraveling in panic. The lion struck. One powerful paw smashed down, bone and scales colliding. Another serpent lunged. The lion twisted, jaws snapping, teeth sinking into its midsection. The grass flattened in chaos, dust, motion, blood. James couldn't move, only watch as life and death clashed beside him. The lion's muscles rippled like coiled steel, its eyes locked with fury and purpose. A serpent latched onto its shoulder, fangs buried deep. The lion roared again, shaking it off, tearing it apart with a violent swipe. The third snake struck from behind, but the beast was faster. It turned, crushed it under its weight, and finished the fight with a final, guttural growl that echoed across the plains. Silence returned. The snakes lay broken, black venom staining the dry earth. James gasped, a jagged, desperate breath that burned his lungs. Air. Sweet, precious air. He coughed hard, chest heaving as if waking from the grave. The lion stood over him, sides rising and falling. Its golden fur was streaked with blood. The bite wounds oozed dark poison, seeping into its veins. Its legs trembled. Their eyes met. For a moment, time held still, two old souls, both battered by life, staring through the veil between survival and sacrifice. The lion swayed once, twice, then sank to its knees beside him. James reached out a trembling hand, his heart breaking as he whispered, "You saved me." The great beast's breath came slower, softer, until only the wind remained. The silence after the battle felt heavier than the fight itself. James lay still, chest rising in uneven bursts, his hand still resting on the lion's manet. The great creature's breaths came shallow and slow, each one rattling like wind through dry reeds. Blood darkened the grass beneath them. "Stay with me," James murmured, voice cracking. He looked around, no path, no phone, no hope of help. Just endless grassland stretching to the horizon, and the dying king beside him. He tore at his shirt, pressing the fabric against the lion's wounds, but it was useless. The blood pulsed stubbornly, soaking through. His fingers trembled, old hands failing where they once built, carried, loved. The helplessness burned worse than his bruised ribs. He'd come out here every day for peace, or maybe to outrun the ache that followed him home. Since Mary's passing, silence had been his companion. The house was too still, her voice too gone. The walks had started as therapy, then became ritual. Step after step, as if motion could fill the emptiness. But now, looking at the dying lion, he realized he hadn't been walking away from grief, he'd been walking toward it. The lion shifted, its amber eyes lifting weakly to meet his. For a heartbeat, something passed between them, something ancient, wordless. A recognition. Not of man and beast, but of two souls bound by loss and endurance. James brushed a trembling hand through its manet, whispering, "You didn't have to save me." The lion exhaled softly, almost like a sigh. Its gaze drifted toward the setting sun, a molten gold sinking into crimson clouds. The light painted everything in fire, the grass, the blood, the tears sliding down James's face. Then came the stillness. The lion's chest no longer moved. Its eyes fixed on the horizon, glassy but calm, as though it had simply gone home. James bowed his head, his grief breaking open in the fading light. The sobs came low and rough, shaking his frail frame. He stayed there for hours, an old man and a fallen king, until the night wrapped them both in shadow. And as the stars blinked awake above, James whispered through the dark, "You won't be forgotten." Dawn broke cold and gray when James finally rose from the lion's side. His body ached, every breath scraping against bruised ribs, but something deeper hurt more, the quiet absence where the lion's heartbeat had been. He pressed a hand to its manet one last time before turning toward home. The walk back felt endless. Each step dragged through fog and memory. The world seemed different now, emptier, sharper. The same fields that once whispered peace now held ghosts. He stumbled once, glancing back, half expecting to see the lion trailing behind him. But there was only wind. When he reached the village, people stared. His shirt was torn, stained with blood and dirt. He told them what happened, the snakes, the lion, the fight. The authorities came, notebooks and questions ready. They nodded politely, exchanged skeptical looks, and promised to investigate. One young officer smiled gently, as if humoring a confused old man. James said nothing more. Some truths weren't meant for reports. Days passed. Nights too. Sleep refused him. The sound of the lion's final breath echoed in the corners of his dreams. He returned to the site, again and again, carrying small offerings, pieces of bread, flowers, even an old photo of Mary. He left them where the lion had fallen, whispering prayers he couldn't name. His family worried. His daughter called from the city, her voice tight with concern. "Dad, you need to rest. You're obsessing." He told her it wasn't obsession, it was gratitude. But she didn't understand. How could she? He began reading everything he could, lion behavior, snake venom, animal instincts. The more he learned, the less it made sense. Lions didn't fight snakes. They avoided them. What he witnessed shouldn't have happened. Late one night, surrounded by books and fading light, he whispered the question that had taken root in his soul, "Why was I saved?" The words hung in the air, unanswered. Maybe the lion had seen something in him, a spark still worth protecting. Or maybe it had been chance, cruel and beautiful all at once. James closed his eyes, hearing the echo of that roar across the plains, and for the first time since that day, he didn't feel entirely alone. The days folded into weeks, and the memory of the lion refused to fade. James no longer flinched at the silence in his home, it had changed shape, softened somehow. The fear that used to haunt him was gone, replaced by something quieter. Purpose. It happened one morning at the clinic. He'd gone in for the bruised ribs that never fully healed. Routine check, they said. But when the doctor's eyes lowered to the paper, something inside James already knew. The words came gently, almost kindly, late-stage lung disease. Months, maybe a year. He sat there, still. The truth didn't frighten him. Instead, it illuminated everything. The lion hadn't just saved his life, it had returned it to him so he could see it clearly before the end. That day in the grasslands wasn't a rescue, it was a resurrection. He began to live differently. He called his daughter more often, apologized for the silences. He started volunteering at the small wildlife reserve nearby, speaking softly to injured animals as though they could understand. Some nights he would sit outside under the stars, the same sky the lion had died beneath, and simply breathe. Every breath felt borrowed, but beautiful. When the season turned, James returned to the plains one last time. The grass had grown tall again, shimmering gold beneath the late afternoon sun. The place felt unchanged, and yet he wasn't. He carried no flowers this time, only himself. He stood where the lion had fallen, closed his eyes, and whispered, "Thank you." The wind stirred, brushing through the grass like a quiet reply. He thought of how one act of courage, whether meant for him or not, had rippled outward, shifting the course of his final days. Maybe the lion had been protecting its cubs. Maybe it had been instinct. Maybe it was something greater, something that couldn't be named. It didn't matter anymore. What mattered was what it left behind. James smiled faintly as the sun dipped low, painting the sky in the same gold the lion once wore. He turned toward home, moving slowly but sure, the light following him. Some sacrifices, he realized, are never wasted, they echo long after the heart that made them stops beating.